We're coming in hot with inspiring guests, witty banter, and colorful commentary for today's veterans and military community. This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
All right. Welcome back to Tango Alpha Lima. I am clearly not Jeff Daly. I am his far more attractive, paler twin. But no, Mr. Daly has had a little bit of a medical issue, and we hope he will be returning to us very shortly. But in his absence here, I have agreed to do not one, but two podcasts with Miss Ashley Maldonado. Ashley, how are you?
I'm well, Mark. This is such a treat. Unfortunate circumstances, but I always enjoy seeing your face.
You know, it seems like just a week ago we were hanging out together, and that'd actually be our topic number one, because I believe it was just a week ago where we were hanging out.
That is 100% correct. You just happen to be in my area. This my stomping grounds. I would have preferred a more than advanced, 48-hour text and.
Yeah, it was not great.
I'm pretty sure you communicated better with my husband on your arrival than me knowing. I think the night before they were just like, "Oh, Mark's going to be in town." I go, "Is this like a I ready the guest room kind of thing, or like what is he doing? Like why is he here?" Like so nobody told me anything.
To give everybody some context, I was invited to represent the Legion at a ruck march on the Capitol to support the Global War on Terrorism Memorial, which the American Legion is supported for a long time through resolutions. And I said yes. And I know super producer Holly doesn't believe me, but I said yes and then realized it was St. Patrick's Day. I realized it was St. Patrick's Day and I had to come up with some excuse to get to Washington, D.C. But I did have the pleasure of not just seeing Ashley and the lovely Robert, but also some battle buddies from our time in the Army. We did enjoy some libations together.
It was very nice. I will say, for anyone that does know you, I mean, they know the hilarity and the stories they just kind of fall out, and then like you give yourself, and then we give you like a Guinness, and it's like, my gosh, do you remember when this happened?
We did manage to get quite the crew together too, because it was my battle buddy from Afghanistan and my best friend, who's the former legislative director for the American Legion. So we had quite a time. Yes, super producer Holly. We were out with Ian, who, for some inexplicable reason, thought we needed shots of Jameson's at, what was it, about noon? It might not even have been noon yet.
I just want to note that I did not participate in this level of libation.
And I would like to note it for the record. Right.
I had not slept up to that point. I had my first full cup of coffee before we even like sat and waited around. And I was like, I've got stuff to do. I haven't slept. I worked all night on a project. And then I wake myself up. I'm trying to get Rob at the Lincoln Memorial at 7 a.m. Which chaos.
Was very early. It should be noted that our libations all took place between like noon and maybe 2. I know I went, was it later than 2? I don't know. I know I went and got some 4-way chili at the Hard Times in Alexandria, and I was in bed by like 4:30 or 5 o'clock. So we did very much behave. Now I watched college basketball and kind of fool around. I didn't really. It was St. Patrick's Day and the first day of the NCAA tournament, which is not a good day to drink unless you're an amateur. It's not like that's
based on the stories I heard. You are definitely no amateur.
That's old me. That's pre. 2008 me.
A very sad Patty's Day for
that guy is no longer. Now I go to bed with 4-way chili in me. But so as we talked about, we are preparing for the Boston Marathon. Yes, Rob hopefully will be joining us. Miss Van Zanten out of South Dakota, and super producer Holly's chairman will be joining us. So yeah, and Ashley will either be walking or be there with Jeff, cheering us on as we do the 26.2 miles with a 35-pound backpack.
Yeah. Uncertain at this point. I mean, my wrist is healing up pretty well. I've got a really nice
look
scar.
at you. Yeah.
I know, a really nice scar. But I'm also a slip, trip, and fall hazard. And between my knee injury and my wrist injury in the past 8 months, I'm not doing super hot.
You
but
did
I could probably do it with 15 pounds. I could probably do it with 15 pounds. So
you did do spectacular at your chosen task at 7 o'clock in the morning at the Lincoln Memorial, which Miss Ashley was my flag bearer. That's right. She carried the big red American Legion flag for me so that, national officer guy wouldn't have to carry his own flag.
No, so bougie.
I mean, it would be
from the bottom. Now we're here.
It would look a little weird if I was carrying my own flag, but it was nice. We got to hang out with your ultimate big boss. Got to talk to him for quite a while, the VA secretary.
Yeah.
We hung out with Senator from Iowa.
Yeah. There's congressmen and women, anyone who supported the bill and just kind of its follow through was there. Secretary of the VA. I know Jared Lyon was there from Student Veterans of America. There were a few folks from IVA, at least that I had recognized and saw. Just a hodgepodge of folks. It was really nice to catch up with, Mike Rodriguez, who we've interviewed before on the show.
I love that
it was
guy.
nice to see a lot of familiar faces, but it was really exciting to be our guidon bearer.
Rod is a stud, man. I love that guy. He is so
wonderful.
great. Yeah. So
he was so sad when we parted ways. He just looked at me and goes,
I know he did look, and but so the memo I had got was you had to bring your vaccination card with you, and I had in my prep neglected to pass that information on, and so I just felt kind of weird. Next time we will 100% have breakfast with Rod, because he did look wounded that we weren't going with him. But at that point I needed to return my ginormous flag that I'd stolen from the DC headquarters, and it was St. Patrick's Day, so yeah,
it was nice to catch up with some folks and say hi, and it was just wild. I really haven't been in the office a whole lot since 2018 when I interned. So it's nice to see familiar faces.
I hadn't been to our headquarters office there in forever and a day. So it was interesting to see that. But the takeaway of this whole topic here that we're talking about is, one, I got to see Ashley and Rob, which was great. Number two is we are getting ready for the Boston Marathon. So if you or someone will be in the Boston Marathon Tough Ruck portion, and or you're going to be there in the Lexington or Concord area and you want to come out and see us, we would love to see everybody. So send us an email, tangoalphalima@legion.org. So there you go. All right, Ash, I obviously was not here for the interview. So why don't you preface and tell us what we'll be hearing about today?
Sure. Awesome. So last month, Jeff and I visited with Colonel Ace Astle, U.S. Marine Corps retired. So John served in the U.S. Marine Corps from 1966 to 1975, including a tour in Vietnam as a helicopter pilot from 1968 to 69, and a tour as a Marine One presidential helicopter pilot from 1971 to 74. His military service commendations include the Legion of Merit, 2 Purple Hearts, Meritorious Service Medal, 31 Air Medals, and the Presidential Service Badge. After resigning from his regular commission in 1975, John served 21 years in the Marine Corps Reserve. During this time, he volunteered and served 5 months active duty in the Persian Gulf War and Desert Storm. He retired as a colonel from the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve in 1996. John flew helicopter patrols for the Baltimore Police Department from 1978 to 1984, and then as a medical evacuation pilot for the Washington Hospital Center from 1985 to 2005. So he's a very, very busy man. His public service also includes many political positions, including that of Maryland State Senator from 1995 to 2019. Colonel Astle celebrates his 60 years of military and public service with his new book, Jungle Combat, a combat pilot's tape recorded transcripts from Vietnam, 1968 to 1969. Today, Colonel Astle lives in Annapolis, Maryland, where he is a lifetime member of Guy C. Pilot American Legion Post 7. We'll be right back with Colonel Astle right after this break.
Howdy, folks. Y'all come on out, get out of those recliners and join us for the 2022 100 Miles for Hope Challenge.
the third American Legion Fitness Challenge will raise money again for veterans and military families in need.
We've made big improvements to the 2022 challenge.
Monthly mini challenges with awesome prizes.
Hey, department adjutants, department commanders, let's get some department versus department challenges and get it going. Let's go.
This year, we've made it even easier to track your miles.
We've made it even easier for friends and family to support you through donations to the Veterans and Children Foundation.
My goal this year is to raise $450,000 for the Veterans and Children Foundation. But we need your help.
Get active and help support veterans and military families.
Visit legion.org/100 miles to register and learn more.
And let's show the nation that we are
Veterans Strengthening America.
Colonel Astle, Senator Astle, and John, welcome and hoorah. And here we are at Tango Alpha Lima. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for allowing me to be here.
All right, I think we're going to jump right in, and Ashley likes to start. So,
Yes, I do. And you are a man of many hats. Man of many hats, John. Very impressive. So, what I want to start with is I want to dig into your military service. You know, you've got law enforcement background. You've been with the Maryland General Assembly. You've done a lot of amazing things. So I want to hear the beginning of your story, John. Like, tell us up to the points in which you started and joined the military, and kind of bring us into your time in the service.
When I was in high school, I was not an athlete. I didn't play football. I didn't do all the manly things. I didn't wrestle or box or any of that. And so when I was graduating, my grades weren't that good, and colleges weren't really excited about having me as one of their students. I decided to enlist in the Marine Corps Reserve. It was supposed to be the toughest group, and, you know, I was going to prove my manhood. So I enlisted. I went to Parris Island, Camp Lejeune. I did 6 months of active duty, and I came back to Huntington, West Virginia, and enrolled at Marshall University. And once I got in, I decided I kind of liked the Marine Corps, but I didn't want to be a private. So I applied for and was accepted into the platoon leader candidate course, which is a commissioning program. I did 2 summers and was commissioned as a regular, went on active duty, and then from there I served 10 years active service. Initially, and I was telling Holly earlier, I thought I wanted to be an infantry officer because I'd grown up in West Virginia in the woods and hunting and guns. And, you know, it was a time right after the war, the big one, the last one we won. And all our fathers had served. And so it was assumed you were going to serve. So I was at Quantico. We were out on a field exercise one night, and it was drizzling rain. It was late October, and it was cool, and we were cold and wet and miserable. And a helicopter came in and picked us up, and I got on board, and it was warm and dry, and the pilots were sitting down. I said, I think maybe this is what I really want to do. So I applied for flight school. Now, I failed the physical because I have a hearing loss as a result of a childhood issue. So they sent me to Bethesda. I did all the tests, and the doctor took me into his office when he finished and said, well, Lieutenant, you have a hearing loss. But you know what? That is exactly why they have volume switches on radios, and he gave me a waiver. So I get into flight school on a waiver. And then went to Pensacola. It was preordained I was going to fly helicopters. The Marine Corps didn't give you the option. You know, they'd say, well, tell us what you want to do. And then they'd tell you what you're going to do. So you probably know how that works, Jeff. So I got assigned to the CH-46, which was a tandem rotor transport helicopter. I went to North Carolina, did the transition, and then went to Vietnam. Got there on the 19th of June. And a couple of days later, I flew my first combat flight. I mean, they weren't wasting any time. I was just baggage in the left seat, but I was still in the cockpit. Excuse me. That went on for until July of '69 when I came home. So half of the tour I was out of Marble Mountain, and the other half I was on a boat on a Navy carrier, a helicopter carrier. So I came home. I went to North Carolina. I did a deployment, and this was like a reward. 6 months in the Caribbean on a ship. We visited all the islands, went to embassy parties, and it was like a Carib cruise that somebody else was paying for. I came back. I went to a school, and then I got asked if I would be interested in being a pilot for the president. And I, of course, said yes. So I was accepted to the Presidential Helicopter Squadron, and I did 3.5 years flying for President Nixon and Vice President Agnew until he checked out. And then I went back overseas again. I took part in the final evacuation of Saigon in April of '75, and then I came home from that and tendered my resignation. But I stayed in the reserves because I didn't want to give up 10 years investment. And then I did another 20 years as an active reservist and retired in 1996 on 30 years service. So that's kind of
incredible.
Now, in the meantime, the 20 years in the reserves, I flew helicopters for a police department. I had to become a police officer. I had a gun, a badge, and handcuffs.
The essentials. As a former military police, the essentials.
Not that a helicopter pilot would ever use handcuffs, but I was there for 6 years, but the job had no future. And one evening I was with some friends in Annapolis talking over whiskey, and I mentioned my job. There was no growth potential, no real future. And one of the guys said, "You should run for mayor of Annapolis. You'd be perfect." And I had just enough whiskey. It seemed like a good idea. And I ran. And I ended up winning the primary, and I lost the general election by 243 votes. But I found something that really interested me. So the following year, I ran for the House of Delegates. There were 3 open seats, 12 candidates. I came in first. And so I did 12 years as a House member, and then the senator retired, and so I ran and replaced him and did 24 years as a member of the Maryland Senate. Now, while I was doing the legislature, I still had to work, so I got a job flying. MedStar, the Washington Hospital Center. I flew a helicopter for them. Because that's
just when you didn't have enough stuff to do. You're like, I'm going to do this too.
I can't sit still.
Keep reaching for the stars. I love it. Oh my goodness.
So that's my life history encapsulated. In the meantime, I got married. I had 2 boys. My oldest son went to the Naval Academy and became a Marine officer. So my youngest son wanted nothing to do with the uniform.
That's okay.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You said when you were flying in Vietnam, you flew a CH-46, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, I did a lot of time in CH-46s, including one that did a sudden stop at the bottom 3 times. So I have.
Well, that's not good.
I know I have some fear. I have some fear of the double whirly bird. It's interesting. You seem to have found your path. Some they put you on, and some you just excelled and were put into. It's interesting about the Marine One thing. What goes into being selected? Do you need a security like what goes on with getting on to be a pilot on Marine One?
Well, the first thing when I was there, and that was over 40 years ago, and so I'm not sure exactly how they operate administratively today, but first thing that the CO would call the officers into an all officers meeting and say, "Okay, guys, we got a couple openings. Anybody you think might fit. They were looking for people whose personality would allow them to integrate into the unit, and they would fit well with the other pilots, the other officers. And then they get some names, and then they'd start checking you out. And one of the things was clearance. You had to be able to get a clearance. And if you had a drunk driving arrest, you were out. That was a no-no. But so you get through that initial screening, and then we had to get a White House access clearance. Well, we had to get a top secret clearance that was done by the military. And then beyond that, we had to get a White House access clearance, which was where the Secret Service got really down into your background. I mean, they dug pretty deeply, and they found things that I'd forgotten about. But nothing criminal. So but you also had to have a reputation as being a good, solid, safe pilot.
I would imagine that you had pretty precious cargo carrying the leader of the free world. So,
well, but most exclusive cargo was in my seat.
There you go. That's that Marine Corps attitude. All right, so we're gonna switch. We're gonna switch into the second round of questioning. I'm gonna try not to go 260 minutes on you. I want to kind of focus on the book part of this, and tell us what went into deciding to make the book, and what you hope people will get out of it.
When I went to Vietnam, I knew I wasn't going to write a lot of letters because I hated to sit down and write. So I took a cassette tape recorder, and I told my mom, you need to get one because I'm going to be sending you tapes. And so at night, I would talk on the tape recorder before I went to sleep. And then when I filled up a tape, I'd send them home. And my mother, like mothers do, saved all the tapes. And they were in a closet for over 40 years. And then she called me one day and said, you really ought to take these tapes, put them in your house. So I brought them to my house here in Annapolis and put them back in the closet. Well, then one day I ran into a guy on the street, a guy named John Ripley. You know that name? Ripley at the bridge. He was the guy that climbed out while the North Vietnamese were shooting at him and put explosives on the bridge during the Easter offensive before the war was over. Anyway, he lives here, or yeah, he's dead now, but he lived in Annapolis. And I ran into him one day, and I mentioned these tapes, and he said, well, you ought to donate them because we have in the Marine Corps Historical Branch an oral history project we're working on, and this would fit right in. So I did. And then a couple weeks later, he gives me a digitized copy of the tapes because he said the magnetic stuff deteriorates. But beyond that, he gave me a printed out transcription of the tapes back in my closet because at this point, I had no vision of doing anything with this. And then a friend of mine, her sister is an editor, and I mentioned this one day. I had this transcription, and she said, my sister would like to see that. And so I gave it to her sister. And a couple weeks later, she called me and said, there's a story here because this is like a time capsule. Your words 53 years ago, your words at the moment, and it captures the emotion, the fear, all those aspects of what it's like to be in combat. And so she said, and I'll edit it for you. So she did. And we got this all done and decided it was worth trying to do something with. So we put it together. Now it's a book.
That's awesome. Before I hand over to Ashley, I want to do a little edification. Cassette tape is a plastic thing that has a magnetic strip, and it records audio. Ashley, you probably,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, this is for me. This is for me.
Yeah.
I thought you were just like.
No. That's for you. That's a cassette
rude,
tape.
Jeffrey. Yeah. Rude. I know what a cassette tape is. I also know what a floppy disk is. I also remember dial-up internet. I also remember having to write things down. Okay. I had to take notes too, just like everybody else. I just heard recently they're getting rid of like the writing portion or any writing for SATs. Anyway, that's besides the point. I'm too late for all of that. I am now in the present. I'm full self-aware. My parents won't let me forget.
I heard
Anywho,
there was, Holly told me there was a little tension sometimes between you guys. So I could see.
a little bit.
I could see that.
A little bit, John. I love him to death. But there are just moments where I'm like,
mostly to death, apparently. So, all right, Ashley, you're up.
So I want to hear a little bit about some of the things that you were surprised. So you get the transcripts back from the book. You've got someone who's willing to do copy edit for you. And I'm just really curious as to, like, as you were going through the pieces and tidbits of the book, what were some of the standout moments where you were either like really coy about what probably would be considered like very dangerous and or, you know, just maybe even what's the word I'm looking for? Almost just something that surprised you about like moments in that time span while you were in Vietnam and you're sending these tapes over. I'd love to get some more insight as you're rereading these or you know, re-listening to these, what your initial feedback was.
I didn't listen, but I read the transcript. Okay. And I had there were a couple of places where it scratched the scab off some of my memories. And there were times when I had to put it down and walk away because the emotion was there, and I just had to take some time to get that under control. And there were other things where I read something and I say, well, I kind of remember that, but I don't remember it like this. Well, you know how your memory shades things over time, over 50 years. So all in all, I think it was a good experience for me to, first of all, come face to face with some of those really emotional moments that I'd kind of put in the back of my mind over the years, just not to deal with. And also to clear up some of the memories that I got wrong.
Cool. So
and there was
sorry, go ahead.
Well, one thing, I remember in one place in the book, I'm talking about, I'd read that the students were demonstrating on college campuses against Dow Chemical because Dow Chemical made napalm. And I said in the book, wow, if they were where we were, they would love napalm because it was a very effective weapon. I give you an example. If we were going to be putting troops in the field, we try to prep the landing zone before we got there. And so we had a choice. We could either do an artillery prep or we could do a fixed wing, dropping bombs, hard bombs, or napalm. Well, artillery and bombs would rattle the caves and things these guys hid in, but it wouldn't touch them. But napalm would get in and get them. And so if we naped the zone before we went in, we were pretty confident that we were not going to get shot out. Where in the other case, if we used hard bombs or artillery, there was always a good chance somebody was going to pop out of a hole and start shooting at you. That was one thing. There was another thing that struck me, and I was just reading this the other day, and it just popped out. I'd flown to a fire base one day and shut down. I went into the operations office, and I saw a chart on the wall. It was a big poster, and it had NDA and VC, and it had a number after. And that was the number that had been killed. And then while I'm sitting there, a guy comes out with another chart, and he puts this up on the wall, and it had all the units of that regiment that were in the field and the body count, NVA and VC. I looked at that and I thought, this is just a game. This is the Anwa Valley Conference scores. And that's what we're doing here. And that's really, the war became a body count thing. Kill them and count them. was what we were doing. And oftentimes we were going back over the same territory that we'd been in 6 weeks earlier. So it was just wondering, what were we doing here? And one other thing, I got a picture that that's my favorite of all the pictures that I brought back. A friend of mine just caught me on the street one day and took a full face photograph. And I look at it and I can see the dark circles under my eyes. I could see the fatigue in my face. I mean, we were just worn out. And I'm reading the book, and I tell my mother, well, Mom, it's 2 a.m. and we're under a rocket attack. I'm in the bunker, but I'm really not happy because I got a 4 o'clock wake up because I got a 4:30 brief this morning because I'm going flying. And it hit me. That's why I was tired. Because we had these rocket and mortar attacks at night, and then, you know, we'd have to get out of our beds and go hide in the bunker until it was over. And in the meantime, you weren't getting any sleep. Now, I will tell you, towards the end of my tour, it got to the point where we'd hear the crump, crump of the mortars down the flight line, and we just roll over and go back to sleep because we needed the sleep. You know, when you're flying, fatigue is one of the biggest killer of aviators. And you're so tired, you make judgmental errors. So anyway, those are a couple of things that kind of stood out.
Well, I sincerely appreciate you sharing them. I know that we've got a little bit of your epilogue from your book. And Jeff, I don't know if you would like me to read a little bit of that, or if
I think we're going to give him, I think he was going to read.
Oh, are you going to read it first,
yeah.
John? Yeah. Oh, yay.
Well, there's one I just was looking at earlier, where I went into a real difficult place. Actually, if I can use the real term, it was a shit sandwich. This is what we call really dangerous missions. And so it was a Sunday afternoon, you know, the sun's shining brightly and air's smooth and quiet. And they called me and said, you got to fly. And so we took 4 helicopters out. This reaction team had been put into the bush to chase after some Viet Cong or NVA, I'm not sure. And so we get out there, and the first 2 airplanes went down, and they got shot up going down, shot up coming out. We start down, we got shot up. Every one of the 4 airplanes got shot up on that. And you know, I'm just thinking, this is just, so I get home was where I slept. Wasn't like home. So in the tape, I said to my mom, well, you know, this is what happened today, and da-da-da-da-da. And by the way, I learned something. You remember I told you once, when you get in a situation like this, you'd be too busy to be scared. Well, Mom, I just discovered today, you're never that busy. No matter how busy, you're still terrified.
Well, ain't that the truth? So that's your book is called Jungle
Combat.
Jungle Combat: A Combat Pilot's Tape Recorded Transcripts from Vietnam, 1968 to 1969. Where can we get that? Where can we find it?
It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I go to coffee in the mornings, and a woman showed up yesterday. She had a copy of the book and wanted me to sign it. So where'd you get that? Well, I ordered it on Amazon. Okay. So
all right. So you have stalking fans. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I try. You want to hear another war story?
Yes. Take us out with one more. Take us out with one more.
My worst day in Vietnam. We were going to do a big operation. We were going to put a division of Marines in a 15-mile circle. We had every helicopter that was available in I Corps, every Marine Corps helicopter that was available. And so when we went out, the part of the zone that my squadron was going to land in was covered with a layer of clouds. So we had to fly through the cloud layers to get to the ground. And, you know, that's something that they tell you from day one, you don't fly in clouds unless you're on an instrument flight plan. But we didn't have a choice. So I came out underneath the clouds, and I'm already scared. I had about 300 feet of clearance between the bottom of the clouds and the ground. And I had the three helicopters in my division in front of me, I'm the last guy. We're in a circle, and in the middle of our circle are the last two helicopters of the four in front of us, and everybody had their 50 caliber machine guns blazing away. And so I'm dancing, trying to avoid running into any of my squadron mates. So eventually we got on the ground, we dropped our people, and then one of the other squadrons landed on the escape route that the bad guys were using, and two of the helicopters were blown up by command detonated mines, and almost everybody on board was killed. And so meantime, there's a lot of screaming on the radios, I'm hit, oh my God. And that kind of stuff that, on the 46, the intercom, you pull the trigger just to one click and you talk on the intercom, you pull it all the way back, you're on the radio, and these guys were squeezing that trigger and they were talking on the radio. Anyway, it took a while to get somebody in to get the bodies out. In the meantime, the squadron commander grabbed me and said, we got a recon team that needs an emergency extraction. And that's another one of those sandwiches. I know getting a recon team is not going to be easy, but you can't say no. CO says, it's yours, go do it. So I flew out. We had two helicopters, and I called them on the radio, and they said, we can't accept you right now. We're in hand-to-hand combat. And no, this doesn't sound good at all. And so I flew off a mile or two, and I'm orbiting, and they're running fixed-wing airstrikes, and gunships were shooting. And then eventually they called me and said, okay, you're ready, come get us. And so, you just take a deep breath and you go, because you don't have a choice. So I got down, I got them, and we flew them back to the fire base that they were working out of. In the meantime, while I was doing that, they'd gotten the bodies out from the crashes, and they were lined up at the airfield. And we were the last two helicopters that were still left out. So we ended up carrying the bodies back to the morgue. Well, the pilot of one of those was a good friend of mine. I'd gone through flight school with him. I'd had breakfast with him that morning, and he was in a body bag in the back of my helicopter. I cried all the way to the morgue. I mean, it was just difficult. So anyway, that was my worst day of my 13 months. It's even worse than, I got wounded twice, but they were relatively minor. So Jeff, that's it.
Wow, that's
Thank you for sharing.
That's a tough first day. And I thank you for sharing it with us. And I'm sure you've shared it at your Legion Post 7 there in Maryland, and with the world in your book, and the digitized audio history. Where's that at once again?
We haven't actually brought that to the marketplace yet, so it's still.
It's in a museum or something somewhere, though, correct?
Oh, it's in the Marine Corps Historical Branch Museum.
Okay. All right, perfect. Well, I thank you so much, and Semper Fidelis, sir. And Ashley, you want to say anything on the way out?
I just want to say thank you and welcome home.
Thanks, Ashley. And if you get to Annapolis sometime, you have to look me up, and I know my way around town, and I know people.
I bet you do, John.
So if you want to talk history of Annapolis, I'd be happy to introduce you to some people and get what you need.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And this has been a much needed perspective, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks for your service. Hey, I got to tell you, can I tell you one more story?
That's a super
Do I have
producer.
time, Holly? One more. Okay, when I went to Quantico, it was a year to the day from the day I'd gotten off the bus at Parris Island. And I get off the bus at Quantico, and I'm going through receiving, and I see my senior drill instructor from Parris Island. And I thought, oh God, because I was scared to death of him. He was a thumper. I'd been kicked, punched, and cursed. So I'm trying to hide from him. And I get through receiving, and they said, go stand out there. We're forming a platoon. So I'm standing at attention. And out the corner of my eye, I see this guy coming towards me. And he gets right in my face. And his Smokey Bear hat was bumping me in the forehead because he's a little bit shorter than I am. And he says, you know me, boy? I said, yes, sir. Where you know me from? Parris Island, sir. Did I take you through boot camp? Yes, sir. What platoon? And I told him, and he said, yes, Private Astle. Come here, maggot. And he grabbed me by the shirt and drags me around to these other sergeants and said, look, one of my turds. And actually, that's a trainee undergoing recruit direction. So it's an acronym. Anyway, couldn't get enough, came back for more. And it worked out to my benefit because he knew what I knew because he'd helped train me. So he'd say, okay, girls, today I'm going to teach you how to make a field marching pack. Astle, get over here. And so we do a field marching pack. And then he'd say, okay, you got any questions? Ask him. So I became like his assistant. And I ended up graduating as the honor man in my platoon. So it worked out.
All right. And I think you don't want to give too much away. I think for anything else, everybody else out there needs to get that book and read up on this. And you can find him on LinkedIn and everywhere else. And Super Producer Ali is always all over this. So you'll be able to send him notes and such as that. So once again, thank you. Welcome home. Semper Fidelis.
Semper Fi, Marine.
A veteran is a veteran.
A veteran is a veteran.
A veteran is a veteran.
The American Legion embraces all current and former members of the military and endeavors to help them transition into their communities.
We are Veterans Strengthening America.
We are the American Legion.
All right. So Ashley, I realized as I was looking at the screen, I'm sitting here looking like an extra in the town, aren't I? Wearing my little Irish cap and my leather coat. It's literally cold in my office. I want to defend myself on that regard. It is a little chilly here. I don't know why.
It's very on brand for you. It's very on brand for you. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Ever since I became the judge advocate and they told me I couldn't wear hoodies, I think I wear the coat about 85%.
You rebel. Rebel.
I feel more safe when I'm surrounded by a warm cocoon of clothing.
Aww. So it's adorbs.
Yeah, you know me. I'm such a sensitive guy to begin with.
Sensitive.
Nothing like talking about my feelings. All right. So first up is my feelings on Russia's alleged use of first hypersonic missile in combat, which, according to a military.com article here, Russian Defense Ministry claimed its military used hypersonic missiles against an underground ammunition warehouse, as well as a fuel depot during the country's fighting in Ukraine last weekend, reportedly marking the first ever use of the new type of weapon in combat. Hypersonic missiles, which can travel 5 times the speed of sound, making them hard to track, trace, and destroy before hitting a target, have inspired worry among U.S. officials and defense industry experts. Those warnings have been constant drumbeat in recent years. However, they're being downplayed here with regard to their use in the Ukraine. You got a chance to read this story, Ash?
Yeah, I was reading through it, and it's just, I think it's interesting. Like, I personally see this as a bit of a game changer, but some of the folks in this article are saying I would not see it as a game changer. But again, I'm limited on expertise and scope. Frankly, like, I've got friends in the intel space that would probably disagree or agree or be neutral, right? It's just been interesting to watch everything kind of go on these past few weeks between Russia and Ukraine, and just seeing some of the increased use of ammunition and then the fall and rise of certain sword I'm looking for. Just the variation bombardment of missiles and things that they've been using on some of the cities has just really, really captivated me. And I can't believe there's going to be nothing left. And then to hear about, these hypersonic missiles, it just makes you wonder, like, when is it going to be enough? Right. Like when are we going to hit that line in the sand? So it's interesting.
Yeah, and I don't want this to sound flippant, but this hypersonic missile is apparently the only thing that's doing its job in terms of the Russian military. I mean, meanwhile, you got pictures of like Russian tanks and BMP being dragged away by dudes on tractors. So like without a logistical trail to put the ammunition on target, this is about the only thing working for the Russians right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
from what I've seen and in reading this article, I mean, it doesn't, like, at first you're kind of like, holy crap, like a hypersonic missile sounds super bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it's all that in a bag of chips, but I'm not a missile guy. But I don't know, thought the story was fairly interesting. They built it all up, and now it's like, well, I don't know. But speaking about Ukraine, this is when Miss Holly, when I volunteered to help with the podcast today, and it was one of those, like, if you need me, I'll do it. Please don't need me. And then she didn't even wait for me to get a second breath. She's like, great, we'll see you at noon tomorrow. But anyway, Miss Holly did come up to my office today and said that I needed to watch the video of Rapid Fire 2, which is the viral sensation of was she 6 or 8, of a little girl singing Seven. So see, I bracketed it pretty well. The little Ukrainian girl singing Let It Go in the subway system in Ukraine, which was very adorable. And unfortunately, Miss Holly now has the Let It Go stuck in my head. And my daughter sings it all the time too. So I do kind of get with it. But she did she sang the Ukrainian national anthem at a charity concert in Poland yesterday. And did you get a chance to see her there?
Oh my goodness. I watched it. Little Amelia. Gave me all the feels. The feels.
It was adorable. I'll give you, it was adorable. And Miss Holly said, you're going to cry. And I was like, all right, get out of my office. Like, we're not here for that today. Well, I got other fish to fry other than having you watch me cry. Anyway, I thought it was a great story. It's just like anything. People will find inspiration in kind of weird things, and little coups, like a 7-year-old girl singing Let It Go, that's big, especially when, people that will watch the news aren't necessarily going to see that. But people who don't watch the news, anybody with a computer pretty much saw this little Ukrainian girl. And if it creates some support for Ukraine, I'm all in favor. Anyway, I thought it really was quite cute.
So there's the Let It Go video, like her singing Let It Go. And then for the Together with Ukraine, which was the organization from the Polish Humanitarian Action, I think, Society or org or nonprofit, etc. But anyway, this benefit concert, Amelia, who's 7, sang the Ukraine national anthem. So it was just like this wave of momentum behind her viral video to really draw attention and unify the country. So it was very beautifully done.
And
it was very cute.
I can't tell it. She didn't seem particularly shy about appearing in front of all those people. So like, I don't know if public speaking is something you grow to fear later on. But I mean, here she is standing in front of a lot more people than I've ever stood in front of singing. And I certainly don't sing, but it was cute. It was very
Children are fearless. We're the ones who impose our own limitations on them. So they're fearless until they're told otherwise.
Yeah, I
believe that.
I really did think it was cute. Now, everyone else here, Rapid Fire 3, I need you to be sitting down for this one. But the Taliban has canceled girls' higher education despite pledges. This is my shocked face. Whoever could have foreseen that the Taliban would not follow true to their promises? Ash, shocked, are you?
No, but it makes me upset.
Yeah.
As an advocate for education and women in STEM and trying to, break these.
Yeah.
It's just a step backwards that these women don't need. And of course, there will be those who will say otherwise. And because of the way that
here's the AP story. Taliban cancels higher education for girls despite pledges. And it says, Afghanistan's Taliban rulers unexpectedly decided against reopening schools Wednesday to girls above the 6th grade, reneging on a promise and opting to appease their hardline base at the expense of further alienating the international community. Sorry, it's been a while since I read. But I mean, this is like, if you can't trust the Taliban to follow through on higher education for women, what can you believe in, right?
What? It's like, they're like, the country is just in this spiral of worsening humanitarian crises, right? And it's a shame, you know.
Everybody I talk to, like all the guys in my unit, we've all said the same thing. The most rewarding thing we did when we were there was open up girls' schools, and boom, they're closed. You know, I don't know, it's a little tough to deal with, but I guess shout outs. I mean, there's only one shout out for me, and that's to our good friend Jeff, who is probably, well, as we're recording this, he's hopefully just laying there in bed watching TV. Miss Holly says that people were going to go and visit him today and spend time with him. And I asked her politely that if I'm ever in the hospital, no one come and visit me. I'm going to sit there and watch Family Guy, because if I'm sick enough to be in a hospital, I can't handle talking to people as well. But Jeff Daly is a talker and a sharer and a people person.
Yeah.
So
I can't even imagine him being any place where he has there's no one to talk to. I feel like he's the type who would press the call button just so the nurses would come in.
Right.
He'd be like, "Hey,
I'm sorry, sir.
how are you doing today?
Are you having? Is something wrong? No, I was just lonely.
No. How are you doing?"
Wow.
I could just see him just long awkward pauses, but like really grasping for it, like searching. Yep.
I can also see Jeff Daly having a line of people outside his room wanting to visit with him, and him being legitimately excited to meet with every one of them.
Yes. Who's probably like making sure his nighty gown is like super tied up, and he's probably like all fitted. It's like, I'm ready to receive my next guest.
Right.
Come hither.
Although I mean,
do you bring tribute? God, he's gonna kill me.
I just want a video of him, shuffling through the halls, holding the back of his gown clothes, with his
little socks on.
Yeah,
his little grippy socks. Oh, yeah, I love it. Oh my God, he's gonna murder me. We're gonna get such a rude text.
All right,
how dare you?
Well, Jeffrey, we love you. Come back soon so that I don't have to do this, because you are infinitely better at this job than I am. So I don't know what I don't know what I'm forgetting.
Oh, I'll tell you what you're forgetting. So do not forget to subscribe to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume your podcasts. Please leave us a review and give us a big old 5-star rating, so that way the world knows how much you love us. If you do have a guest recommendation, go to legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima and click on the suggest a guest link. Say that 3 times fast. Suggest a guest, suggest a guest, suggest a guest. That's what I'm talking about. Now, I know Jeff isn't here to do the official closeout, but I'm going to say that episode, let me double check.
98.
Episode 98. Wow. Episode 98.
I thought we recorded episode 100 or something. She's doing, this is the.
Okay, got it. Okay.
This
Anywho.
is Holly doing the, and I don't know what anyone means.
For the rest of folks who know the official signing off of the Jeff Daly, I'm going to try and duplicate it. So this is episode 98, mission complete.